So hello and good evening, this is Resposuela from Curbal.com, and today we are not going to go through a DAX function like we normally do on Fridays. We're actually going to talk a function that Microsoft released in February, and it is marked as a data table. I'm not going to show you how to do it. It's like super easy. Well, you will probably see it through the video, but that's not the purpose of this video. What I really want to do is to talk about why you should do it. What are the benefits? Why has Microsoft introduced this feature? It was not like super clear in the beginning, especially if you don't have certain scenarios. So I've got a question on YouTube. It's like, Ruth, could you please go through what this mark as a date feature is and why we should use it? Because despite the documentation, I still have doubts. And this is a great opportunity to go through this because it is actually something that I think we should all do in all our models. And we will go through why. So let's begin the video. So here is Microsoft documentation on how to mark a table as a date table. And here they actually explain how to do it, but they don't say why you should do it. So that's the missing piece, I would say, with the documentation that I've seen so far. And let's first begin with, date tables and what they are useful and all that stuff. So Power BI works behind the scenes and identify tables as date tables. So to be able to do time intelligence, you need to have a date table. And most of the time you will create it yourself. And on Excel actually have the possibility to mark it as a date table. We've never had it in Power BI. And for most people it's not an issue, but for others it is. And we will go through the different scenarios why this is useful. You should do it anyway, especially when you have your own date table. But the first thing I want to talk about is this works behind the scenes to identify date tables and then creates date hierarchies. I was doing a little bit more research on that, and then that's when I found Chris Webb's excellent blog post. And there are some things here that I didn't know, and I'm so glad I'm making this video. So here's the thing. When you create a date in Power BI, and you mark it as a date, so Power BI automatically creates date hierarchies in your model. Okay? It says it drives me mad. I found them mostly annoying, but I didn't realize where it actually happened. And he's explaining it here like very well, like Chris always does. So he says, it personally drives me mad and I always turn it off. I didn't know you could turn it off. I found it super annoying. I would have loved to be able to do it. And he goes through an experiment of what's happening in the background. And I've actually replicated the experiment. What he did, he opened a Power BI file and just loaded 3 tables. Power BI file, edit queries. I just ordered 3 columns, 1 table with 3 dates. And the range is from the 1900s to the 2020. So the same for those, is the same dates interval between the 3 columns. And just load it into the model. Let's go through his blog post. He says, okay, when you save the results, the file is a massive 4.7 megabytes. I looked into the size of my file and it's 350 kilobytes. So obviously Microsoft has done something that compresses the date tables better. I'm guessing because my file is nowhere near that. But it still is interesting. I said, why are you talking about this, Ruth? Well, I just want you to understand what's going on. So if we go back to Power BI, you see we have here date 1, mark as a date. And then this date hierarchy is being built for you. Okay, it's being built not only for you. You can use this as year, month, quarter, and they say, oh, well, then I don't have to create those fields. Awesome. But it's also built for time intelligence. So Microsoft can actually do time intelligence because to be able to do time intelligence, you need to have, let's do it here. They go through it here. You need to have a date column that contains unique values, no null values, continuous values, and is marked as a date time. So in order to prevent you, I mean, you don't need to know this. If you have a column marked as a date, Power BI will fill in the blanks for you, creating those hierarchies. Let's continue with Chris. I mean, this blog post is brilliant. So he continues and said, okay, I connected DAX Studio to the model. I've done the same. And then I just copy the code that he has here. The only thing I did, it was change the names to the names of my tables. So this local table should be your local table, not Chris's. And then he's actually doing a row count. So this date hierarchy is basically creating a table on the background to cover all those dates. So he's making an interval, a table that covers from 1900s to 2020. So it is 44,000 rows just on that table. So every time you have a date, it will create one of these, and then it will be, it multiplies. I'm guessing now that perhaps they're just creating one in the background. That's why the files are not that big. If you know, just let me know. We'd love to know what happens that makes those files small again. But now you know what's going on. He goes on saying that, hey, you can actually remove that. I had no idea. You don't have to now go to all your files and remove this time intelligent thing, especially if you have your own calendar. Because if you mark as a date table, those hierarchies will disappear by itself and the model will be smaller, okay? So don't go wild just doing this. Just mark as a date table and it will disappear. If you don't have a date table, for sure, go here, options and settings, options. Go to data load, auto date time, remove it, and as you can see, the hierarchies disappear, which is a good thing. Let's bring it back. Well, maybe we can leave it like that. So mark as a date table, you go to modeling, you pick the date from your calendar table, mark as a table, and then you select the date. And again, you won't be able to do this unless you meet the requirements that they specified here. Contain unique values, no null values, contain continuous date values, and date time, date type should be, okay? So it normally tells you, oh no, where did it go? There's somewhere in the background, just a second. So it normally will tell you what the issue is. And here it says the date column has gap in the dates. So you should have all the dates, and that's why Microsoft created it for you. So the first reason why you should mark as a date table is because all the built-in date hierarchies will actually disappear, which is a great thing. So why mark as a date table? It removes date hierarchies in your model. Remember, for that you need to have your own date table. I have actually a video on that, on how to create your own date calendar table. So this is great. We have one reason now. Let's move to the next one. And this is something that you might not come across in your Power BI life, but that's okay. In case you do, you know. So let's continue. Okay, are you all ready? Yes? Yo! So you've probably seen this video with Patrick from Guy in a Cube, where he talks about why you should mark tables as date tables, okay? And he talks about a very specific scenario that perhaps not a lot of Power BI users have come across, and it might be a bit confusing. So let's go through what he says first, and then I will put a link so you can go and watch it if you want to know about this specific scenario he mentions. So doing some research for this video, I've come across this mark as a date table seems to be pointless. And here is a guy that takes the time to explain a few things and points to this thread in the Power BI community. This is Greg talking to Matt Allington as, mark date table behavior. And he mentions a few things that are worth noting, and you will get a link on the description box for this blog post, okay, for all the resources that I show here, of course. And he talks about syntax sugar for calculate time intelligence functions, And he talks about when we mark as a date table, the semantics are altered slightly. Any filter applied to the marked date table will first clear all filter context from the table rather than just the filter field. And this is something that happens in time intelligence functions. Fine. And then, here's the interesting part. The most dramatic difference is that marking date as a date table will allow you to use a field other than the date to join between fact and dim. And this is what Patrick talks about in this video. He is talking about data warehousing and multidimensional OLAP. And if you haven't worked with those, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But if you want to see the scenario, in case you come across it, just go to the video från Guy Cube, Patrick, and you will see a specific scenario of exactly this. If you haven't worked with it, if you will not work with it, ignore it. But this is the second point, why to mark date as a date table. So it removes data hierarchies in your model. It allows you to define the field other than date to join between fact and dim date for data warehousing and multidimensional models. Okay, and now the third one. Let's go for it. So Greg mentions here the last point, and it's time intelligence functions require a key. I actually does it talk about quick measures? Maybe it's not here. Sorry, I think it's back to this Stack Overflow measure where it says quick measures. That's the reason for Microsoft wanting to introduce mark as a date. And I have actually a DAX Fridays video on quick measures. And on minute 934, I talk about what happens if you don't have data hierarchies. And I think they weren't available when quick measures came about. I'm not sure. I think they weren't actually. And I don't know, we don't have any dates there. But anyhow, what happens is for quick measures to work, they need to have built-in date hierarchies. And if we go through the quick measures documentation, they will actually tell you need to have a built-in, I think they say it on the beginning somewhere. Anyhow, I will post a link to this, but take my word for it. You need, and you can see it also if you go to my DAX for this video, you will see I demo when I choose a date that does not have built-in hierarchy. So what happens? If you have your model, you have your calendar, you mark your calendar as a date table, then your quick measures will work out of the box. So Microsoft doesn't need to worry that you will get errors. So that is the third reason why you should mark your date table as date table. So one last time, why mark as a date table? It removes data hierarchies in your model. It allows you to use a field other than the date to join between fact and date. And it simplifies working with quick measures, okay? Because quick measures use built-in date hierarchies, and you will get that by marking your calendar as a date. And then you will not get any errors, and Microsoft will be able to continue building in these quick measure features that will definitely allow beginners to have a quick head start with Power BI. So, yeah. Okay, so I hope that this video helps clarify why mark as a date table is a good habit to have and why you should do it. Did I miss something? Did I say something wrong? Is there any comments you have? Let me know in the comment box. If there are any scenarios that you know that I should have mentioned here, I will definitely pin your comment. Other than that, it is Friday. Have a great Friday. Like the video if you like it as usual, and share it if you think somebody should know about all this. If you're new to the channel, hey, Power BI videos 3 times a week. So make sure you subscribe and click the bell button to receive notifications when I publish new videos. Other than that, I wish you all a fantastic Friday, and I'll see you again on Monday. So take care. Bye.